So Congress is returning from a 2-week recess today. Democrats are confronting demands for impeachment after voters back home voiced other more pressing concerns. A new Monmouth University poll continuing a trend we've seen that health care remains the #1 issue for voters. Rick Ungar is a syndicated radio talk show host, and Antonia Ferrier is a former staff director for the Senate Republican Communications Center. It's good to have you both here. I'm going to show you just one other part of that poll, because the president and Biden today, everyone's talking about the economy. The question was, how much has your family benefited from this economic upturn? A great deal or some, 43%. Not much, not at all, 54%. Now, Antonia, we know that these are record numbers for the economy.
Yep.
Do you think that that has a partisan bent, or do you think there is a real issue here that some people have not felt the economic benefits?
I think there is definitely a partisan bent. There's no question the economy is just going gangbusters. Those job numbers, the economy numbers last Friday were unbelievable. I think some of it has to do with Republicans not talking about tax cuts and the importance of the economy. And I think there's been so much noise out of Washington. There hasn't been the ability to sort of focus in on what Republicans have done to liberate the economy and grow the economy and jobs. What
do you think about that, Rick? Do you think that, though, there is a segment of the population that says that this isn't helping me?
Yeah, this will shock you, but I disagree.
But you disagree so agreeably.
Well, that's the best way to disagree,
Indeed,
isn't it?
indeed.
Now, here's the problem, and we've seen this for a number of years. And by the way, this is not something that I blame the president for or anything else. The reality is we have seen great economic growth, but we've also seen that it is not reaching a lot of Americans. Oddly enough, particularly in some of those red states where the president is very popular, we're not seeing it get there. We've seen this in the same way we've seen good economies over the last many decades. They will inure to the top 1%, maybe a little more, not to overstate
But wages have started to go up.
Wages have finally started to go up. You know, for a long time, though, in the first couple of years that we were tracking under the new administration, nominal wages were going up. Real wages were not. They were not keeping up with inflation.
But that started.
In the past 6 months, we're starting to see improvement there. And I'll tell you what, people expect me to be partisan. I don't care who gets credit for it. If American workers are making more money, I'm happy.
And Antonia, I do want to ask you about this. You used to do messaging for the Republicans on the Senate side. Healthcare is still the #1 concern. At some point, our voters are going to say, you haven't done anything for us either on this issue.
I think probably. The short answer is absolutely. And I think there was actually some reason why when the president said about a month ago he wanted to tackle health care and Senate Republicans said, no, we don't want to do that. I think they were sort of reacting to the practical reality of trying to come up with a plan that Republicans could unify behind.
But not having anything doesn't seem like a good option.
That's right. And I think that's actually what the president was trying to say.
Yeah, I do too.
Let's come up with something that we can rally behind. And so I think there is going to be...
He needs to have something to be able to say.
Correct.
I do want to ask you about this, too, because over the weekend, Rick, there was this event in Las Vegas. We had 6 of the candidates, Democratic candidates, there. They were talking to union members. The SEIU had this event. Take a listen to Elizabeth Warren. She apparently really fired up the crowd.
She did.
We don't know whose grandma's going to outlive her savings. We don't know whose good friend is going to get caught in the web of addiction or who's going to fall and break a hip. But what we do know as Americans is that we're all going to pitch something in every day so that if it hits your family or your family or your family, we're all going to be there for each other. To me, Medicaid is the best of what America is.
Rick, her poll numbers stayed pretty low, but she does put policy on the table, and she's there talking about the wealth of giving 2 cents of every dollar for Medicaid. Will that sell?
It could. I mean, look, let's look at what's happening here. And Elizabeth Warren, someone's fascinating because she is bringing the policy. She's really the only one bringing the policy, but you're not seeing it show up, as you said, in her numbers. We'll see if that changes. It's very early. It might not. I happen to find that idea pretty interesting. 2 cents out of people who have a net worth of over $50 million. That's not.
But that's only for one part of her plan. I mean, how many? Like, she basically wants to take 2 cents times what, Antonia?
Well, each million.
Yes.
Right?
I know, but that's just for the Medicaid. What about her climate plan and the free college plan? I mean, pretty soon,
Also,
there's no more dollars.
It gets to be real money?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. And the Medicaid program was designed for the truly poor and indigent in the United States. It is not a health delivery system for all Americans. It is not the way that we should be doing it. There's a differential between Medicare and Medicaid, what they pay. Seniors would do much better than the less well-off. So I don't think it's realistic, and I think she needs to go.
What about the president's point today today that the union membership, that they actually quite like the president.
They do.
And they like that record, but it's the union leadership that continues to support Democrats.
They did.
Let me ask you. Okay, go ahead.
They did. I mean, if you go back to the election, yes, the president had very deep union membership support. I stay in touch with the unions. That's really a big part of what I do. We are starting to see some changing.
And what are the two big issues?
I think Lordstown is probably the one word that sums it up. The president promised jobs, told people to stay there in Ohio, and they shut down. He didn't keep those promises.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think there's a huge
Antonia.
differential between the union leadership and the membership. And at the end of the day, I think for the union bosses, they're all about buoying up the Democratic Party.
Love having you both. I hope you come back. Rick Ungar and Antonia Ferrier, thank you.
Thank you, Dana.